Soundview Park in the Bronx sits in the shadows of LaGuardia Airport with millions of people living nearby. It was one of 31 sites in the New York City area that were part of a study from 2015 to 2019 examining the diversity of mammals in urban green spaces.
We designated the green spaces in two different categories, urban natural, and what I mean by that, these are green spaces where at least 50% of the area is secondary growth forests, and then we have what's called human-altered habitat or green space, and this is where at least 50% of the habitat is human-altered. What I mean by that is ball fields, golf courses, etc.
Researchers used remote cameras to spot the wildlife.
If the green space was surrounded by higher human population densities, we tended to have less mammal taxa richness than green spaces that had lower human population densities. We also used ArcGIS to look at land cover. So we looked at satellite data, and we found that green spaces that were surrounded by less developed land cover harbored more mammals diversity than green spaces where there was more developed areas. So one of the patterns we found is if there's a green space in New York City or the New York metropolitan area that has a large patch area, those green spaces seem to harbor a lot of mammal diversity. This park, Soundview Park, for example, has coyotes and pups in it, which is kind of interesting.
Raccoons and cats had the highest number of detections. There have been worries about the impacts of feral cats on the songbird populations, but the study found another predator may be curbing those impacts.
So we already knew that cats were present across most of the green spaces in our study, but what was interesting to find was that we think that there may be coyote and cat interactions where coyotes may be limiting the presence of cats. So we think that this may have trophic impacts on songbird populations eventually as they move farther out.
The researchers say the findings of an additional study have implications for green spaces in other urban areas, especially those by rivers or other water bodies.
We have another study that we're doing that's along the Bronx River, which is New York City's only freshwater river. And in that study, we find higher mammal taxa richness than we do in all 31 green spaces combined in this particular study.
The authors say the findings should be considered when developing land management plans.
Try to have at least 50% natural area, urban natural areas, even if you're going to have your golf courses and your lawns and your ball fields and that kind of thing. It really changes the mammalian diversity of an area to have at least half of the space be natural area.
The Delaware Riverkeeper Network and communities have worked to preserve and restore buffer areas such as the Mooresville Preserve, Burlington Island, and sections of the Cooper River and Darby Creek. The buffers reduce flooding and filter pollutants from runoff. The results of this study show an additional benefit from protecting these areas. Researchers say creating wildlife corridors connecting urban green spaces should be a goal.
Since we're finding that the level of development immediately around a green space depresses the diversity of organisms of mammals within the park, that suggests that having some degree of connectivity is probably, it's an implication that the connectivity probably would be important between green spaces.